right, so I'm Kerri, owner of Eagle Eye Farm, and as some of you may know, I am a physician, so I am a human doctor, and we're going to start this new series, and it is called Alpaca versus Human. And I'm doing this in conjunction with my vet, Dr. Cassie Rice. So Dr. Cassie Rice used to live right around here, and she serviced me in River Falls, Wisconsin, but she has now moved to Eastern Pennsylvania. We are still communicating and still working together. But the first thing we're going to just talk about is some general information about alpacas versus humans. These boys are not being very cooperative and staying with me, so we're just going to kind of move over here next to Taz because I think he'll hold still, or not. All right, let's talk about the lifespan of humans versus alpacas. So alpacas, their lifespan is about 18 to 20 years. Llamas, their lifespan is about 15 years. For humans, a human male, the lifespan is about 74 years, and for a human female, the lifespan is about 79 years. Now let's talk about height. Okay, so for an average female, a human female, the average height is about 5.4 inches, or 5 feet 4 inches. It's a 5 feet 5 inches. For a human male in the United States, the average is about 5 foot 9 inches to 5 foot 10 inches. For an alpaca, we measure at their withers. So the withers are kind of like towards the front of their shoulders. And so for a female alpaca, the average is about 30 to 38 inches. And for a male, the average is about 40 to 47 inches, okay? Actually, the 40 to 47 inches is for a llama. The height for an average female is about 170 pounds, and for an average male, human male, is 200 pounds. For an alpaca female, the average weight is 120 to 140 pounds, and for an alpaca male, the average weight is 160 to 200 pounds. These llamas, though, like Taz can, the average weight for llamas is between 250 and 550 pounds. So llamas obviously are much bigger. So what's interesting is that for alpacas, that you measure their height at their withers, but Mateo is pretty average height. So the average height from like their top of their head is around 5 feet tall. But these llamas, they can measure up to like 6.5 feet tall whenever they stand up straight. So obviously the llamas are much bigger than alpacas. So I hope you enjoyed this. We will continue to do, we're going to go about anatomy, fun facts of comparing alpacas versus humans versus llamas. All right, I hope you continue to watch. Thank you. All right, so here we are for part 2 of our series, Alpaca versus Human. So again, I'm Kerri, the owner of Eagle Eye Farm, and I am actually a physician. So I'm a human doctor, I'm a radiologist. I'm doing this in conjunction with our former vet, Dr. Cassie Rice, who now practices in Eastern Pennsylvania. So last week we just talked generally about the height and weight and lifespan of alpacas versus humans. Today we're going to talk about ears and humans. I picked Folklore because she has some, if she'll show them, she has some mighty cute ears. I always like to say, ear hair is super cute in alpacas, not so much in humans. So we can also look here at all the stars aligned. So she also has very cute ears. All right, so a little bit about ears. So the ears in alpacas should be spear shaped, okay? They are shorter than those of llamas. The ears can be relaxed back, okay? Kind of like if we look over there at Siri right now, we can see that Siri has some relaxed ears. That does not mean that she's frightened or that she's angry. That's unlike horses or dogs, where if the ears are kind of pinned back, that means that they could be frightened or angry. It does not mean the same thing in alpacas. The other thing that's interesting about alpacas is that we look for clues for their health at their ears. So for instance, if like one of these stars align, if one of her ears was all of a sudden down and it's a new finding, then we would look for signs of ear infections or other manifestations of illness in her. So this is just one of the things that, one of the clues that alpacas can give if they're not feeling well. So we're gonna head on over to Taz and take a look at the difference between alpaca ears versus llama ears. All right, so this is Taz. He's our resident llama here. Come here, Tazzy buddy. Look at those ears on him. So the ears of a llama versus the ears of an alpaca, obviously they're much bigger, but they're also banana shaped. If you notice that they have a gentle curve to them versus those of alpacas are supposed to be spear shaped. So they should not have that curve to them. But for llamas, they should definitely have the curved ears or the banana ears. So that is one of the big differences between alpacas and llamas. So again, we're back with the alpacas. The ears can either be upright, and whenever they're alert and curious, they tend to put their ears more upright. Whenever they're more relaxed, their ears tend to go back. So that's exactly what Third Time's a Charm is doing right now. Her ears are back. But if you look over here at L'Oreal, her ears are up because she's alert. Alpacas do have excellent hearing, and they can hear at 60 decibels of sound with a hearing range of 40 hertz to 32 kilohertz. They are the most sensitive at 8 kilohertz, and they do not like loud noises. So alpacas hear better than pigs and horses, but not as well as cattle, goats, and sheep. So in humans, we can hear at a range of 20 to 20 kilobytes, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, with a hearing threshold of 0 decibels. All living mammals have 3 bones within their inner ear: the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And what happens is that the vibration is transmitted through these little ossicles or these little bones in the inner ear from the eardrum to the inner membrane. So let's focus for a second on Maya. So Maya is one of our beautiful girls here. So she does have blue eyes. And so that's so important in alpacas because 78% of white animals, so they have to be completely white animals that have blue eyes, do have deafness. So it's bilateral, meaning both sides are deaf. Okay, this happens in both alpacas and llamas, and it's similar to what happens in dogs. So what this means is that functional melanocytes, or the cells that produce color, are essential for normal hearing in alpacas. However, what's interesting is that in people, albinos, so people that lack those melanocytes in general, are not deaf. Maya here, because she is gray, has no risk of being deaf. However, being that we are responsible breeders, we still would not breed her to a male that has blue eyes for the risk of potentially creating an alpaca that could not hear. So I hope you enjoyed this series. We're going to continue. Next week, we're going to go on to the eyes. All right, everybody. So I'm back again. This time we're going to do alpaca versus human, and we are going to focus on the eyes today. So the eyes in alpacas are larger in proportion to the head than they are in humans. So let's see if we can find a good one to look at their eyes. All right, so obviously in both humans and in alpacas, they have a colored part of their eye, which is called the iris. The iris is what controls the light that comes into the pupil. So the irises of alpacas can be brown to blue. So we have little Maya here. If she'll take a look at us, maybe she won't. She's hiding. She's like, don't look at my eyes. But Maya has blue eyes, okay? Versus all the others that we have here have dark brown eyes, which is by far the most common. Nobody wants to show us their eyes today. So in in alpacas, the pupils are horizontal, but they're oval, versus in hoofed animals, they are horizontal, but rectangular. The other thing that's different about alpacas is that they have 6 iridic granules, which are little brown spots at the junction of the iris and the at the junction of the iris and the pupil. And what this does is there's a bee on the camera. And what this does is that it makes alpacas be the most sun sensitive of any of the animals. So cattle and goats have only a few of these iridic granules, and horses have only 1. And this helps to protect them from getting too much light into the pupil. So if you notice, some of our alpacas have super long, thick eyelashes. I think Enchanted up here has the most beautiful eyelashes. And so the eyelashes do a couple of things. They help to protect the eye, and plus also the eyelashes are extremely sensitive. So the eyelashes are very similar to a cat's whisker in the fact that they are able to detect, say, objects that are getting close to the eye, and so that the alpaca knows that they need to protect their eye. The other thing that's interesting about alpaca eyes is that they do have a third eyelid that is transparent. And the reason that they have this eyelid is this third eyelid is to help keep debris out of their eyeball. So humans, like I just said, alpacas have that horizontal oval pupil. The hoofed animals have a pupil that is horizontal but rectangular, and humans have a round pupil. The other thing is that I already discussed this, is that alpacas have large eyes compared to their body. The alpacas have extremely good eyesight. They have peripheral vision of nearly 360 degrees without having to move their head, versus humans only have about 180 degrees of peripheral vision. The other thing is that they have excellent depth perception, and that's due to their horizontal pupil. The other thing about alpacas is that they have excellent night vision. So that horizontal pupil and those iridic and granules help a lot with the depth perception as well as the night vision. So this right here was our third installment, I believe, of human versus alpaca. So just again, I'm Kerri. I'm the owner of Eagle Eye Farm. I am a human physician. I'm a radiologist. I'm an MD. I do this in conjunction with Dr. Cassie Rice, who is a veterinarian. Cassie used to be here in the River Falls, Wisconsin area. She moved to Eastern Pennsylvania. She has a strong passion for camelids, and we're working together on this series. It's an educational series where we're going to discuss the differences between humans versus alpacas. Next week, we'll move on to the teeth and to the taste. Thank you. Well, here we are today, and we're going to discuss noses. And Zelda has a beautiful nose. It almost looks like a heart to me. All right, just like people, noses of alpacas come in all different sizes. So Ford here has a pretty long nose. But what's interesting about alpacas is that they have a very short nose bone, versus in humans, we have a very long nose bone that goes almost to the edge of to the tip of our nose. So on alpacas, the cartilage covers the vast majority of the nose. So it's very important to note that, because I'm going to show you how we place a halter in just a second. But the other thing that's really interesting about alpacas is that they have the ability to cover up their nasal passage, their nose entrance. And that's because whenever they don't want to get dirt or debris in their nasal cavity. Pretty genius. So this is Enchanted, and we put in a halter on her. We have to make sure that it's high enough on that nasal bridge so that it involves that it's being pressed on only the nasal bone. If it were to fall down here, you can see that this is cartilage, okay? She would feel like she was suffocating, because what's interesting about alpacas is that they are obligate nose breathers, meaning they only breathe through their noses. If you see them breathing through their mouth, you know that they're in distress. The other thing that I want to show you about alpacas and their sense of smell is that they have, in general, a communal dung pile. This is because they have an acute sense of smell, and so they try to go in the center of the dung pile. And here we are with Aggie. She's not so excited about showing you her nose, but what's interesting about alpaca's sense of smell is that it is much greater than humans. And part of the reason is that their olfactory nerve, which is what actually takes the scent from the nose to the brain, is bigger than it is in humans. In humans, ours becomes flattened out and sits underneath of the frontal lobe, whereas alpacas, theirs sits right on top of the front, right within the frontal lobe. So alpacas have a much better sense of smell than do humans. You know, what's interesting is elephants actually have the best sense of smell, and dolphins have no sense of smell because they don't even have the nerves that go from their nose up to their brain. One more interesting thing about alpacas and their sense of smell is that it is used for socialization. Lavender has been proven to decrease the heart rate in horses, and we can only assume that the same thing would happen if we gave lavender to alpacas. And it is definitely a social interaction for alpacas is to have their sense of smell. I hope you enjoyed today's little talk about noses and smelling of alpacas versus humans. This is our series, Alpacas versus Humans. I am Kerri. I'm the owner of Eagle Eye Farm, and I am a human physician. I'm an MD. I do this in conjunction with my former vet, Dr. Cassie Rice, who now practices in Eastern Pennsylvania. So next week, we're going to discuss the mouth. I hope you'll tune in. Today, we're going to talk about alpaca lips. Aren't they beautiful and kissable? We're here with the lovely folklore. So what's interesting about alpaca lips is that the top lip is split. See, it has two parts. Now, each of these parts acts independently. So they can move this part or they could move this part. The reason that they have this is so that it helps them to pick up small objects. It's also very, very sensitive. So it helps them to discern if they are if they're trying to ingest a foreign object versus food. This is how come alpacas in general don't have bezoars, which are foreign objects located in their tummies. Thank you, folklore. And this is the lovely L'Oreal. So again, she has that split upper lip, but their lower lip, if you'll notice, is actually very tight to their teeth. Okay, this is completely and totally normal. This is our English Angora bunny, Baxter, and if you look closely, he also has a split lip. And right here, I have the awesome Jack, who also has a barely split upper lip. All right, and this is my lovely human model, Kane. So the philtrum is this part right here that goes from the nose to the upper lip. It's indented. And so actually, a split lip in humans is one of the most common birth defects. And it impacts one out of every 1,600 babies that are born. The philtrum in Latin is known as the love potion. So people actually use that as a sign of desirability. And so the shorter the philtrum in females, the more appealing it's supposed to be. So, but the philtrum actually does serve a purpose in humans. So it actually helps to get the scent up into the nose. As we discussed last week, humans don't have as good of scent as animals do. And so this actually helps to propel the scent up into the nose. So I've kissed every other animal on the farm. I will not be kissing Kane. This was our segment today on the upper lip. So this is our segment, Alpacas versus Humans. I do this in conjunction with my vet, Dr. Cassie Rice, who now lives in Eastern Pennsylvania. Hi, Mateo. And I am a human doctor. So I thank you for watching. Stay tuned next week where we'll talk about the teeth. All right, so for today's Alpaca versus Humans, we're going to talk about teeth. So as we know, humans have teeth on both the top and the bottom, but alpacas don't. So alpacas have teeth only on the bottom, not the top. So on the top, they have a dental pad, okay? So the teeth meet the bottom teeth meet the dental pad where they can still eat, okay? But it's only on the top where they don't have teeth. In the front, if you actually look in the back, I don't know if you can see that, Kate, they actually do have teeth on the back, up front, on the top. So, especially the boys get what are called fighting teeth, okay? And the fighting teeth need to be trimmed. The regular teeth also have to be trimmed. They continue to grow. So we always, when we're shearing once a year, we always end up going ahead and trimming those teeth, making sure that they look nice and good. Just like we talked about earlier this week, where the white alpacas tend to grow their toenails a little bit faster, the white alpacas also appear to grow their teeth a little bit faster. So with that being said, they have to be trimmed a little bit more often. So I hope you enjoyed this segment of Alpaca versus Human. I am Kerri, the owner of Eagle Eye Farm, and I am a human physician. I do this in conjunction with my vet, Dr. Cassie Rice, who now lives in Eastern Pennsylvania. Our model today was It Was All by Design. It Was All by Design is a beautiful male. He is actually available for partial purchase, meaning I would love for him to go to another home during the off-peak hours from us for breeding, so more during the fall, winter, and early spring. He has beautiful fleece, and so he would make an awesome alpaca to share. Thank you. Alpaca versus human, the neck. Ooh, I moved too fast for that one, didn't I? So if you look at Enchanted's neck, you'll notice that alpacas do have long necks. That's probably one of the things that's most striking about them is the size of their neck versus the size of a human neck. So why is it that alpacas have long necks? There's great debate, but one reason for sure is so that they can graze. So they have long legs, and in order to reach down to the ground, they have to have long necks. They also use their necks to wrestle with each other. Additionally, they use it as a counterbalance. So whenever they're seated, or which we call cushioning in alpacas, or laying, they use it as a counterbalance. So one other reason that they have long necks is because they love to eat leaves. And so their long necks allow them to reach up to the trees and grab the leaves. The other reason to have a long neck is so that they can spot predators. So the neck, ideally in an alpaca, is 2/3 the length of their back. So on Melman, for instance, the neck, if you were to, in your mind, push it back, it should ideally end up about here. The alpaca should be rectangular in shape. Alpaca versus llama necks. The llama necks are just longer than the alpaca necks because they're taller. So, like humans, alpacas have 7 neck bones called vertebrae. What's different about the neck vertebrae of the alpacas and llamas is that theirs is obviously taller. It's actually hourglass shaped, whereas in humans, ours are rectangular shaped. The alpacas have great flexibility in their necks. They have very much strength in their muscles. However, they have very little muscle mass, which is why their necks are so skinny. You can see the necks being so skinny. It's particularly noticeable whenever they get sheared. The last thing about alpaca necks and llama necks is that their nuchal ligament, which is a thick band, kind of like an elastic band, that goes from the back of the head all the way down to the top of the spine of their back, is very thick. And that allows them to lift their heads up. So this is alpaca versus human. I am Kerri. I'm the owner of Eagle Eye Farm, and I am a physician. I do this in conjunction with my vet. Her name is Dr. Cassie Rice, and she now practices in Eastern Pennsylvania. I hope you enjoyed this segment and continue to tune in for future alpaca versus humans.